You are listening to Move Forward with Matt Campisi. Move Forward is an interesting mix of motivational, political, and comedic discussions designed to empower, inspire, and entertain. Host Matt Campisi is a political candidate and social advocate. Episodes feature special guests and occasional artistic performances. And now here is your host, Matt Campisi.
A lot of people want to know what happens after they die. You put together all scientific evidence, biological and physics. You have no existence after you die. You can believe what you want in a country where we have protection of religious expression, but if you want to ask science what science says about it, you go into a state of non-existence. You can say, well, why is that? What's that like? I'll tell you exactly what it's like. It's what it was like before you were born. You're not asking yourself, what was it like before I was born? I had to have some existence. You didn't. You have no existence, a state of non-existence before you were born. So I'm not given reason to think that your state of non-existence in death differs in any fundamental way from your state of non-existence before you're born, giving that much more meaning to what it is you can and should do while you're alive in this world.
That was Neil deGrasse Tyson, the famous physicist. And he's talking about his thoughts, scientific thoughts, about what happens after we die. Do we live on? Is there an afterlife? Is there life after life? Is there life after death? That seems to be, for the most part, the consensus from the scientific community. That when you die, you're gone. You go into eternal oblivion. What's that like? Well, the only way to describe it, to explain it, would be exactly what he said, just like before you were born. It's non-existence. You don't exist. You're not around. You don't experience anything. You are no longer. That is the general consensus of science of what happens after we die. What do you think? There's a lot of people who disagree. There's a lot of people who have their own opinions. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that's out there. People have a lot of stories, a lot of different experiences. There's near-death experiences, which we'll be talking to someone about near-death experiences. All kinds of different experiences that people have that have caused them to believe that there is something else out there after we pass. My mind is open. I have not officially ruled anything out because I'm a mere mortal. I don't know the answer to this, just like most of you out there. I'm a skeptic. I'm going to be honest with you. If I'm leaning in any direction, the direction I'm leaning is that it's eternal oblivion, that when you die, that's it, you're gone. There's nothing else after this life, which puts a lot of things into perspective. You have a very, very short life, a very, very limited amount of time to be alive. And you certainly want to make the most of it before you are gone. If you were to believe that there is something else, something after this, something that continues on for eternity, maybe it's less important to make something out of this current existence. Who's right? Who's wrong? We don't know the answers. We may never know the answers, or we may be decades, hundreds of years, thousands of years away from really learning the answer. Is there life after death? It's up there with, are there aliens out there? It's just one of those, human questions that we're always going to have until we have an answer. I have two special guests that I'm going to be talking to on this podcast. The first guest is a very, very intelligent woman who is going to talk about the afterlife and her thoughts on the afterlife. She is an admitted skeptic, but she has a lot of thoughts on this topic. We're going to talk to her and get an interesting perspective on an afterlife, on death. We're also going to be talking to a gentleman from overseas who is going to talk to us about near-death experiences, which is fascinating. It's a fascinating topic, and he's going to share some of his thoughts on death, specifically near-death experiences. So this is an information-packed episode of Move Forward with Matt Campisi. There's going to be a lot of information in this one. This is my first one where I have two guests in one episode. So there's going to be a lot of information because this is the topic. This is the number one question that human beings can have, and that is what happens when we die. Some people feel they have the answer. Some people are 100% confident. Eternal oblivion. That's it. We're gone. We don't exist. That's the answer. Let's get over it. Let's move on. But we don't know. We don't know if that's correct. We don't know. There could be something else. We could be more than just a brain. There could be some kind of a spirit, some kind of a something, life force, energy force that exists within us that can continue past our death, beyond our death. What happens after we die? Is there life after death? That is the topic on today's Move Forward with Matt Campisi. I want to welcome to the podcast Liz Entin. Liz is an author. Welcome, Liz.
Hi, welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to speak today.
Thank you so much for being a part of our podcast. Today we're talking about death, and I know you've written several books on the topic. You know a little something about the afterlife. So I wanted to ask you a couple questions, get your insights on it. I guess we'll jump right into it. The first question I have is, do you believe in an afterlife?
Oof. Well, I don't like the word believe at all. I think there is a large amount of evidence. I didn't really say a preponderance of evidence at this point where I can conclude an afterlife or survival of consciousness is very probable. It seems like, as of now, the most reasonable conclusion. But so that's where I'm at with that.
Wow. Could you share some evidence, just some stuff that you've heard that kind of swayed that decision for you?
Sure. Well, the very first was kind of came from a thought I had. So my dad was in hospice, and I mean, I'm so sorry for anyone who can relate to this, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who can. When you're losing a loved one, your brain's very, very foggy. So I was having a lot of sort of what I would call weird, foggy ideas, and one of them began with if so much of science fiction, and the majority of it does seem to come true, such as the technology we're using right now, self-driving cars. Is there any possibility that we could turn back time or play with time? Which got me delving into that, reading about all of Einstein's theories of time relativity, the fact that, yes, theoretically we can time travel. It's not that easy, obviously, or we'd be doing it in more noticeable ways, although there are thoughts when we're traveling into outer space, we might be time traveling by a couple seconds. That's a whole other topic to go into. So, and then my very next thought was, which is what I thought at the time, if consciousness is created by our brain neurons, and that happened once. If you think of the concept of eternity, eternal big bangs, big crunches, evolutions of intelligent species, why would another set of brain neurons not create another human or other, complex consciousness I got to be? And kind of like the way we live many lives, like reincarnation without all the woo behind that. And I thought, if that's happened, is there any way some memories by some mechanism we don't understand carries over? And that was where everything changed. And that's where I found the strong evidence. I Googled that. I found the research of Dr. Jim Tucker and his mentor, who has passed away many years ago, the late Dr. Ian Stevenson, child psychiatrists, professors at the University of Virginia. I'm part of a research group called DOPS, the Division of Perceptual Studies, and they're all scientists studying an afterlife. And these psychiatrists have been studying cases of kids with past life memories from a really data-based science perspective, and they were getting incredibly positive results. So that was the first evidence, as well as all of the research at the Division of Perceptual Studies. And that was the first bit. So there's that research. There's, part of that group, Dr. Bruce Grayson, he studies near-death experiences, which are people who've passed away and are resuscitated. And as medical technology has improved, there's more and more cases of near-death experiences where people report going out of body, a lot of similarities, but the strongest are ones they refer to as verified, where they might float into different hospital rooms, float into the waiting room, and get information that is verified. And then mediumship, up to quintuple blinded studies on psychic mediums who are getting significantly accurate information under tight controls where identity's hidden. And that's just some of the evidence. There's a lot of other evidence, not directly afterlife related, but related to consciousness behaving in ways that defy our understanding of it, that seem to predict the future, that seem to know things in the past, and that seem to operate, what is often referred to in the research world as non-locally, which means not created by a brain, but somehow outside of it, downloading it and getting information in ways that it only could if consciousness operated that way, which I can delve into all of that further if you would like.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing
Yeah.
stuff. I wanted to ask you, how has the death of loved ones shaped your perspective on your own life?
Oof. Oh, that's in so many ways. First of all, there's always going to be a sadness. I don't think grief ever goes away. It evolves, it changes. So it's learning to live with that sadness. It's definitely changed how much I value my other loved ones and finding more loved ones and investing time in them. Um, and it really is tied into this afterlife research. So thinking that there is more than just this life that I'm going to get to experience is completely transformative. Oddly, I think I was always very aware that I would die one day, even as a kid. For some reason, that always felt very real to me. I was not one of those teenagers that thought it would never happen to me. So, but it's made me less afraid of death. You know, eh, yeah, and I think it's definitely made me a lot more focused on picking the people in my life that are the right people instead of just wanting to have fun with everybody.
That's awesome. That's a really, really
Thanks.
positive thing. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to us. I wanted to ask you, how can our listeners find out more information about you? Maybe pick up a copy of your books. I know you've written several books on the topic.
Mhm.
Where can our listeners go to get more information?
Well, the books are everywhere books are sold. I also have a podcast, and that's on all apps, and it's all centralized on my website, wtfjusthappened.net, and that's where you can link to all of it, as well as reach out to me. I'm super active on Instagram too. Of all social media, I'm probably most active there. So you can link to my Instagram there or find me WTF_just_happened_.
Liz, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy, and for taking the time to talk to me today about this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
I want to welcome to the program Dr. Bob Kopis. Dr. Kopis is an expert on near-death experiences. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Matt.
Thank you so much. So, I guess I want to just jump right into it. What exactly are near-death experiences?
Near-death experiences are very strange phenomenon. They are experiences that are overwhelming for the people that have them, and in short, it most often occurs with a medical critical situation like a cardiac arrest, but not only then, it can also happen under different circumstances, but people say they have been outside their body, and they have been in this otherworldly environment that's totally different from the earth, from the earthly environment. And they say they have been in heaven, or they have been dead, and they have seen what comes after we lived our lives. So it's a very strange phenomenon, because it touches upon, well, what religions say, or they think they have knowledge about. But these are just common people, just like you and me, who have had such an experience and say they have been on the other side.
Wow, that's amazing. And what got you interested in this field of work?
Well, that was a long time ago. It was when I did my study economics at the University of Groningen, which is up north in my country. I live in the Netherlands. I live in Amsterdam. Maybe people know that city. And I was always spiritually interested. But once I read the book by written by Raymond Moody, in which he coined the term near-death experiences, it really caught my attention, because it was a doctor that wrote about this, and it said something about the afterlife, and it sounded like things that I really could resonate with, because I was brought up in a Christian tradition with hell and purgatory, and I didn't like that very much. Not only because it's so fearful, and it gives distressing elements, but it's also that I never felt that that was the right thing. And here in this book, it was written that no one judges you. And that was not only written by him, he just quoted people who had such an experience. And interestingly, this book had been published 50 years ago, so it's a golden anniversary now. And IANS, that's the International Association for Near-Death Studies, just recently had a conference in Chicago, where we had a party because of the 50 years that had passed between this publication and now.
Wow, that's amazing. It's really interesting. Are there any experiences that you've become aware of that have had a profound impact on you?
Sorry, that had become...
Like any experiences that you've heard, some near-death experiences that have had like a profound impact on you that really influenced you?
Oh, many. But the thing is that the thing is that I started looking for near-death experiences after I read that book. But at the same time, I had to do my study, and I had to find a job to have an income. But later, like 25 years ago, I started really looking into this, and I found out that there is this organization in America, what I mentioned just before, International Association for Near-Death Studies. And I went there to these conferences, and I met so many people there. And I found out that in the Netherlands there is also an organization with that had all these events, and I visited them. So I found so many people to talk to, and each story is interesting in itself, but there are some stories that stand out from the others. And maybe I'll just mention one that really made a difference for me. That was a story told by a woman here in the Netherlands. She was very small at the time when the war ended, so that was in 1945, a long time ago. And she was a child then, and she had, you have to imagine, the Netherlands were part of Europe where the war just raged, and it devastated our country. So we didn't have any luxury goods. We had to start all over again. But the mother of the child had some sweets, or made some sweets, I don't know. But she said to the girl, you can take them back home, back to school, and then share them with your friends. And that's what she did. And that gesture never occurred to her as important. But now, later in her life, she had her near-death experience. And in her near-death experience, she had what many people say, a life review. I want to stress that not every near-death experiencer has a life review, because a near-death experience is very specific to the person. So not they are different. Not one NDE is the same as another. So not everyone has a life review, but many people do. And the interesting thing of a life review is that you can see your whole life being played out. You see each detail. You can see everything you did. And that's what she saw. She saw everything she had done, and she came across this moment in time. And that's where she told me about that. So she was like 70 years when she told this to me. And she said, I noticed what I did. I shared my sweets with the school friend, but I also saw how it was for the school friend. I was the school friend. I saw it from her point of view, and I felt so honored to receive these sweets from her. And it made me so happy. And it didn't stick only with her, with the school friend, but also the mother of the school friend was touched by the gesture. And even further, it was like as if she created a ripple that went through, well, further than she could have thought of. So imagine this little girl shares sweets with a school friend. It touches the mother of the school friend. It touches even further. And that is the interesting thing that I heard later on much more often from other NDEers. The same school friend had another story where she was asked by one of the other school friends if she could help her with lice, because she had lice in her hair. And at that time, you didn't have any shampoos or any other ways to get rid of them. So you had to do that manually. And the school friend asked her, the NDEer, to help her. And she did that, but she did that with a big fuss. She went like, she raised her voice and she said, okay, come on, and I can do that for you. But later on in her life, she had her NDE, and she saw that particular moment in her life review, and she saw what that did to that particular school friend. And she said, literally, she said, it was like I stuck a knife in my own heart, because she felt it from the side of the school friend. And it was really awful. And she said, the thing that was even worse than that was that I saw that I had options. I saw that I could have chosen a different way, and that I didn't do that, and that I didn't find a way that would have been more loving. That was really hurtful. So the thing that she heard the school friend wasn't really the worst thing, but the worst thing was that she saw that she could have done something differently. But still no judgment. That's the interesting thing of life reviews. And the many life reviews that I came across is that there is no one judging you. There is no judgment.
That's amazing. Very amazing. Dr. Kopis, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I know you've written several books. Where can our listeners find out more information about you and about the books that you've written?
Well, the thing is that the last book I wrote is published by IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, and it contains hundreds of quotes from near-death experiences, and I ordered them in several chapters, like how do you get out of your body? How do you get into your body? What about the light that people see? The unconditional love, the oneness that people feel, or the life review. And there's also a chapter on circumstantial evidence that NDEs are real. And so there are a lot of chapters in which people can find information, and it gives a good impression of what an NDE is. It's so difficult for people to really express what an NDE is, because people who have had an NDE say, we cannot explain what it is because it is so out of this world. There are no words in our language, and there's no concepts in our language to express what they are. So the book, I want to flash it for you, is called Impressions of Near-Death Experiences, and it's available on Amazon. And people can go to my website and find the links. It's bobcopus.com. That's where they can find me.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. We appreciate you sharing some insight with our listeners about the topic. Thank you so much, Doctor.